Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Pastor David Trainum thanking you for tuning in on this fine August day. In a moment, I'm going to be continuing the series that I started. I'm referring to it as the keys to life. And last week, we began talking about the formative years that we all go through, the process of maturity that establishes our life. It establishes your attitude. It establishes how you're going to relate in social situations with your money and all these other different things. So we're going to continue that because there was still a bit that I wanted to talk about these things with. So as I start, please take a moment, like the page, leave a comment when we get to that. Also, tell somebody about these teachings I believe are going to continue to encourage their lives. Okay, so with that said, as I just mentioned, with your formative years, there's the process of maturity that's in place. And that process of maturity, it actually establishes your attitude. It establishes how you're going to view life. It establishes how you are going to interact with other people. And it also establishes how you're going to handle adversity. Now, life, and don't let anybody tell you anything different. Life is meant to be enjoyed, whether or not you got a lot of money or a little money, whether or not you got a big family, little family, or no family at all, whether or not you have the best job in the world and you love it, or you hate the job that you've got, but you understand you got to work because the Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. Okay. And so we're just grateful for the life that we have. And what we've got to do is we have to look at things within our life and we have to pull the positives out and enjoy the life to the best of our ability. Now, this enjoying life is true even when that very life throws you a curve. And properly handling adversity, it requires you to have a certain level of maturity. And the irony is, some physically matured men and women never grow up mentally or spiritually. They continue playing around and doing immature things while justifying juvenile actions. Properly maturing has an influence on you because it determines the type of associations that's going to come into your life. That's important. See, I'll say it again. Properly maturing has an influence on you because it determines the type of associations or the type of people that's going to come into your life. Mature people often attract other mature people and generally do not befriend immature people. And this does not mean that they don't speak with them or associate with them, but immature people are generally never brought close enough to a mature person, whereas a strong, life changing relationship with them is forged. A lack of maturity often keeps people in circles that often they don't want to be in, but they do not know how to get out of. They don't realize that acting childish does not invite people who have the ability to add substance to their life. And telling someone they're acting childish may be something that we may never tell another adult, but those who are mature will just kind of go around the corner and try to find somebody else who is just as, or if not more so, mature than they are. However, when somebody always wants their own way, they're always arguing, they're always screaming, they're always pouting, they're giving someone a look of disdain, saying one thing and doing another, not regarding another person's time and always being late, not providing for your family, constantly making excuses instead of owning up to the fact that they were wrong. They hold on to behaviors and attitudes that are intimidating and demeaning to others just to prove their wealth or their point. My friend, these consistently done are all actions of immaturity, no matter how cool you think they are or how they may feed your ego. You see, many times relationships, get this, they influence the decisions that you make. They unconsciously influence, hear it, unconsciously influence how you act or react, and who your greater circle of people is that you're going to interact with on a daily basis. A mature life attracts matured people, and they inspire you to make a life that is more matured. You see, in life, I've said this several times during this teaching, there will be positive and negative situations that's going to challenge your moral compass. And they're going to try to diminish the character that you want to build. And if you allow people in your life that have a negative effect on your character, you must do what you can to change your circle of friends. I don't know if this is still said, but years ago, I used to hear the statement that a man is known by the company he keeps. The same can be said for a woman. You see, this is true with your thoughts and your habits. You see, a man is known by the thoughts that he allows to go through his mind, or let me say this, stay in his mind. The habits that he consistently portrays. And your mindset towards what is true and right versus what is wrong and false must go over to what is true and right more than what is wrong and false, with the hope that eventually all wrong and all false habits and thoughts are going to leave your life for good. Now, often when you're maturing, you try to find yourself. And here you copy the behaviors of others and you act like people that you admire. They may be displaying wrong actions in a positive way, and you suddenly let those words and actions into your own life. You see, some people become selfish, sexually promiscuous, drug addicts, alcoholics, pornographers. They speak filthy language, prideful. They become pimps or prostitutes. They become greater liars, greater cheaters. They steal more and more. And in the African culture, in the 70s, what we did was we allowed the movies that we refer to, and it's still referred to as blaxploitation, to forge our thinking. You see, blaxploitation is a term for a genre of movies made particularly in the 70s that largely featured Black actors, actresses, and were aimed at Black audiences. Notably, many of them glorified pimping, drug dealing, sex, drugs, and a disregard for life. These movies portrayed wrong actions in a positive light. They are considered wrong from the perspective of our moral compass, and not because these people were worse than anybody else. And those wrong actions went around the nation and into other parts of the world, showing young men and women, including me, a lifestyle that seemed right unto us. But in the end, they would lead to death. They destroyed countless numbers of homes and families while destroying dreams and visions that could have been used to change the world. And often, because these things were glorified, many people developed character traits that gave them over to being mental, sexual, and physical abusers. They have a challenging time with relationships. And although they have an open and calming personality before their friends and associates and even in the community, behind closed doors, when they're with their mate, when they're with their children, when they're with those that are closest to them, they fight, they cuss, and they fuss. You see, they promote an atmosphere there in the home that instills fear in their mate and fear in their children, and through intimidation, they get what they want. However, doing it this way, they miss the most important part of any relationship, and that is love. Because you can make someone do what you want through verbal or physical violence or intimidation, but that will never produce an atmosphere of love. Love always allows the person that you are in a relationship with to be themselves, And when you are around or in your presence, everyone is at ease. You see, these are attributes or characteristics of your formative years that we talked about last week. Formative years, those years between 0 and 8 or 10 years old, and that you built upon through a moral compass as you got older. You see, these are precursors to adulthood. And often after adolescence, what you bring into your adult life will determine the successes or failures that you will enjoy in your early adult years. You will find that the positive character traits will give way to more powerful positive character traits. And by the same token, if they're left unchecked by continuing in negative adolescent behavior, you will find that they will bring heartache and pain that could have been avoided. You see, for some people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, my friend, can I just say this in all love? It's time to grow up. Doesn't mean that you're never going to laugh, doesn't mean that you're never going to have fun. But my friend, it's time to become matured. And it's never too late. And the sooner you begin, the more time you will have to enjoy a fruitful life. And as Jesus said, a life that is more abundant. And another thought is this. During your formative years that, as I said, we began talking about last week, and we're continuing here, you must likely have felt love and you have received discipline from your parents or your guardians. Their act of discipline was not meant to destroy you, but to assist you on your path to maturity. You see, I know that some forms of discipline was borderline abuse, and for others are outright abuse. But most true discipline fosters a greater love for the person showing that type of love, especially when you got older and you realize the responsibilities your parents had. This does not make an excuse for it, but it does put it into perspective. What many do not realize is that when our parents disciplined us, it was an act of love because it said, whoever does not discipline his son hates him, but whoever loves him is diligent to correct him. Even God says those that he loves, he rebukes and he disciplines. So when we were young, we thought that every act of discipline by our parents was an attempt to infringe upon our freedom or restrict us from having fun. But that was not the case. You see, if you have a child or a grandchild, we all learned this when we became parents. And we had to do the same thing to our children, and we're doing the same thing to our grandchildren that our parents and our grandparents did to us. You see, we know the dangers that other people, are trying to bring and influence our children and our grandchildren with. Other people who are opposed and want to ensure that our sons and daughters get through their adolescent years with trauma. But see, we're there to interrupt those particular people. We're there to set parameters around our children's lives because we know that other people are posed in just the opposite of what I just said. They want to ensure that our sons and daughters don't get through. And here we want them to get through. We don't want them to experience trauma. We don't want them to even experience death. And let me go here as I close. Even in formative years, we competed with our siblings as we learned to be unselfish. We learned how to negotiate, and we learned at times how to lose with grace. And this causes a bonding with your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, your uncles, and especially your your close cousins, your first or your second cousins, those who are real close, not discounting the broader relationships, but those who are real close, first and second cousins, they're still like brothers and sisters. And in your formative years, you learn to be unselfish and how to lose with grace and how to negotiate. And this bonding it lasts for a lifetime. And although you would disagree and even at times fight with your siblings, like I did, especially with my younger brother Toby, the same is not true for outsiders. Because no matter how mad I got at Toby, if anybody came against him, or if I saw him fighting in the playground, and I wasn't a brawler by no stretch of the imagination, but I put my life on the line in order that I would help defend him, and I've done it more than once in the Giffen playground. Before they had the houses and the swings, all they had was a set of monkey bars, and they had 6 baskets, on both sides of the playground, which was a block long. Those who are my age, they would remember that. You see, the bond that we had, it lasts a lifetime. And although we would disagree, see, when somebody on the outside came in, man, they had the whole family to deal with. Another family that was like that is the Coles family. Nobody messed with the Coles family that lived at 56 Bassett Street. I know there's others, and I'm not discounting them, but I'm simply telling you this. Even though somebody might be fighting in their own family, it doesn't mean that you can come and do the same thing. Because in those formative years, you also needed interaction with your classmates, your friends, and your coworkers. See, these relationships shows you how to resolve differences and amicably arrive at solutions that you still remember to this day, proving that when our differences are discussed with open minds, they forge lifelong associations that you are still reaping benefits from. You see, your life is set up, whereas blood really is thicker than water. That's true in the natural, but also if you're a follower of Christ, as most people who probably are reading this book or who's watching this YouTube broadcast this, you find that it's true spiritually. You see, we learn how to handle arguments and disputes in the playground, in the home, on the sports field, or community events so that we can be prepared for life. Your formative years, critical for you and me to understand that although they stopped in a sense when we were 10, where most of your knowledge came from, it's not supposed to stop forever. You're to be ever learning. With that said, we're going to pick up here next week, speaking into your life. If you would allow me to, tell somebody about the teachings. If it's blessing you, tell somebody to tune in every Wednesday. And if you're listening, if you just got hold of this, send me your email so that I can put it in here, because they're recorded before time. A lot of times emails go out, and if you send it to me, it's not on there for a few weeks or even for some for a few months, unless I remember to manually put them in. So with that said, know that you're loved, know that God's got all things under control, and know that your life is getting better and better. So God bless you, and we will talk to you and speak into your life next week. God bless.